When I married Daniel Harper, I believed I understood what forever meant. We met in college at a small university in Ohio, bonded over late night study sessions and cheap cafeteria coffee. Daniel was steady, responsible, the kind of man who made promises carefully and kept them faithfully. I loved that about him. After graduation, we moved to a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, bought a modest blue house with white shutters, and began building what we both called our simple, beautiful life. For the first few years, everything felt aligned. Daniel worked as a financial analyst, and I taught third grade at a local elementary school. We hosted Sunday dinners, planted roses in the front yard, and talked about having children, someday soon. But as the years passed, something subtle shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There were no slammed doors or shouting matches. Instead, it was silence. The kind that stretches between two people sitting on the same couch, staring at different screens. Daniel grew more focused on work. Promotions came with longer hours, constant emails, and business trips that seemed to multiply overnight. I told myself this was normal. Marriage wasn't always candlelight and laughter. It was responsibility. It was commitment. It was understanding when your partner was tired. Still, loneliness has a way of whispering truths we try to ignore. That's when Ethan Cole entered the picture in a way I hadn't expected. Ethan had been Daniel's closest friend since high school. He was the best man at our wedding, the one who made the crowd laugh during his toast and hugged me afterward, saying, "Take care of this guy, he's hopeless without you." Ethan was warm, observant, and carried an easy confidence that made people comfortable around him. For years, he visited occasionally, joining us for barbecues or football nights. But after Daniel's promotion required more travel, Ethan began stopping by more often, sometimes to drop off tools Daniel had borrowed, sometimes just to check in. At first, I thought nothing of it. He'd sit at the kitchen counter while I graded papers, telling stories about his new marketing job or asking about my students. Our conversations were light, harmless, friendly. If Daniel was home, he'd join us. If not, Ethan would usually leave after a short while. But one rainy Thursday evening, everything felt different. Daniel had flown to Chicago for a conference. I was home alone, listening to the steady rhythm of rain against the windows. Around 7, there was a knock at the door. Ethan stood there, slightly drenched, holding a bag of takeout. "I figured you shouldn't eat frozen pizza alone," he said with a sheepish grin. I hesitated. It wasn't inappropriate, I told myself. He was Daniel's best friend. We'd all shared meals together countless times. So I let him in. We ate at the kitchen table, laughing about old college memories. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely seen. When I spoke, Ethan listened, not distracted, not glancing at his phone. Just present. "You okay, Claire?" he asked gently at one point. The question caught me off guard. "Of course," I said quickly. He studied me for a moment. "You seem tired. Not physically. Just tired." I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to notice. That night, after he left, I stood by the sink staring at my reflection in the dark window. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Nothing at all. But something inside me had shifted. Over the next few weeks, Ethan's visits became more frequent. Always innocent. Always brief. We talked about books, about the students in my class, about Daniel's demanding schedule. Ethan never criticized him. He never overstepped. If anything, he defended him. "He's under a lot of pressure," Ethan said once. "He cares about you more than you know." That made me feel both comforted and unsettled. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel called to say his trip would be extended by 2 days. I felt disappointment flood through me before I could mask it. That evening, Ethan invited me to join a small group of friends at a local art fair downtown. I almost declined. But then I thought about the quiet house waiting for me. The fair was lively and colorful. Music drifted from street performers. Food trucks lined the sidewalks. Ethan introduced me to his friends simply as Claire, Daniel's amazing wife. There was respect in his voice. No hidden meaning. As we wandered through the booths, we stopped at a stand displaying watercolor paintings. I admired one of a sunrise over a lake. "That one feels like hope," Ethan said softly. I glanced at him. Our eyes met. And for a brief, suspended second, something unspoken passed between us. Not desire. Not fantasy. Just recognition. Two people acknowledging that they felt understood. Later that night, as he walked me to my car, I felt my heart pounding. Not from fear, but from awareness. This was dangerous territory. Emotional territory. I should head home, I said quickly. He nodded. Claire, you deserve to feel appreciated. His words lingered long after I drove away. That night, I barely slept. Nothing had happened. And yet everything had. The following week, Daniel returned home exhausted and distracted. I wanted to tell him how lonely I'd been. I wanted to say I missed him, not just physically, but emotionally. But when I began to speak, he cut me off gently. Can we talk later? I've got a deadline. Later never came. And that's when the realization hit me with full force. My marriage wasn't broken because of another man. It was fragile because of silence. The turning point came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Ethan stopped by to return a book he'd borrowed. Daniel was home but asleep upstairs after a red-eye flight. Ethan and I stood in the living room, the air thick with everything we hadn't said. This is getting complicated, he admitted softly. I nodded. Yes. He took a step back, creating distance between us. Claire, I would never disrespect your marriage. Or Daniel. He's my brother in every way that matters. I know, I whispered. And you deserve more than half attention from anyone, he added. There it was. The truth. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Just honest. For a fleeting second, I wondered what would happen if I reached for him. If I let loneliness make the decision my heart wasn't strong enough to make alone. But I didn't. Instead, I said, I need to fix my marriage. Or at least try. Ethan nodded. That's the right choice. And in that moment, the emotional tension that had built between us dissolved, not into regret, but into clarity. That evening, I sat across from Daniel at our kitchen table. No phones. No distractions. I feel alone, I said plainly. He looked startled. Alone. I'm right here. Physically, yes, I replied gently. But not emotionally. For the first time in months, he truly listened. I told him about the silence, about missing our conversations, about feeling unseen. I didn't mention Ethan. This wasn't about another person. It was about us. Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to realization. I thought working harder was loving you better, he admitted. I thought providing more meant being more. Tears welled in my eyes. I just need you. That conversation lasted hours. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Over the next several months, Daniel made changes. He turned down an optional project that required travel. We started attending marriage counseling. We scheduled weekly, no phone, dinners. Slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding what we had neglected. Ethan stepped back respectfully. His visits became rare. When we did see each other at group gatherings, there was warmth, but also boundaries. The unspoken understanding that we had come close to a line we chose not to cross. Years later, I look back at that season not as a scandal, but as a wake-up call. I never betrayed my vows. Not physically, not emotionally in a way that destroyed trust. But I did learn how fragile connection can be when neglected. Sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't about temptation fulfilled. They're about temptation resisted. Ethan didn't become my first real kiss. He became the reminder that I deserved to feel valued. And Daniel became the man who learned how to show it. Marriage isn't about never facing temptation. It's about choosing, again and again, the person you promised forever to.